Morning, folks. So, I'm starting to get in the rhythm of doing these videos on my way to work again. Hopefully, people out there find them engaging and entertaining in some capacity. Yesterday, I did a video on Einstein and Plato and the concept of space-time. And that was very interesting. I wrote a post on Facebook last night also, and it was about our sense of scale. It's about how captured we tend to be as a species by scale. It's pretty easy for us to think about the world from our perspective. That's simple, right? We all agree with that. I wake up every morning and I have my perspective. I'm a human being. I'm living on Earth. I'm on the westernmost coast of North America, which are, of course, just names, but they're the names that we use. And I live in a small town called Santa Cruz on that coast, right? And so I look around at the world from that geolocation, and with my cultural conditioning, everything my society has told me to be true about life and meaning and values, I look through those lenses at the world. And we have a lot of people looking through those lenses at history right now. And, you know, that's causing some confusion around, it doesn't allow us to understand it from the perspective of the people who are alive at the time. Like, nobody's walking around in the Renaissance saying, hey, look, it's the Renaissance, it's so sweet, I live in the Renaissance. No one knows it's the Renaissance. We call it the Renaissance. We call it that in hindsight. So our perspective on that time of this new flourishing, sure, some people are experiencing a new flourishing of intellectual art and activity and humanism at that time, but not very many, and only in certain places. And so, we kind of paint history with a broad brush, and then we look back at the people who are living in the Renaissance and be like, why didn't they know they were living in the Renaissance? How could they do that? It's the Renaissance. It's not medieval times anymore. So anyway, that's not exactly scale, but it's something along the lines of what I'm trying to talk about is perspective, really. Like, our universe is just, has infinite scales, really. It's multi-scale. You can't really say there's a fixed number of scales. You conceive of certain sets of scales to help you understand as a heuristic device, but, to say that there's only certain scales is kind of silly. But here's an example. I'm a human. I'm an individual. I am driving to my job at work, and I left my house, and here I'm making my videos and all these things, right? Okay, so that's true, but it's not the whole truth. I am also a member of the human species. I'm part of my family. I'm part of my country. I'm an American citizen. I'm a Brooke family member. I am part of the human species, and go beyond that, I'm an animal. I am part of the animal kingdom. We're primates, in really sophisticated ways, and now we're stepping back, and we're starting to see that we're animals, and in fact, we're alive. We're connected with life. That's another scale you can look at things at. Life. We're a member of the community of life. And in fact, that community of life is located on a planet. We're on a planet. Hey, everyone I know and everything I've ever really known, except for when I look up into the night sky at night, is from Earth, essentially. Or maybe the sun and the moon too, duh. But, so these are different scales. Who cares, right? Why does this matter? This is kind of obvious stuff, but we don't really think about it, and it matters. It matters because if I look at a problem that I'm facing from my individual perspective of Jericho Brooke going to work, I'm going to see it from my perspective, and from a very specific scale, the human scale. On the other hand, if I step back and I'm able to look at it from a much larger, or perhaps a much smaller scale, depending, I can see it differently. That's the same problem. It's another valid way of looking at this problem. And why that matters is that it may present a different solution than I'd find if I was looking at it as Jericho. So an example would be, I don't know, pollution. We're polluting the planet. Human beings are polluting the planet. We're doing a lot of other things, but we're also doing that. And what does that mean? It means we're pumping large, unsustainable amounts of pretty toxic substances into the environment around us. And that's having all kinds of effects. That's reducing the number of species on the planet. We're changing the landscape. It's changing the climate. It's doing all kinds of things. So from a human perspective, I'm like, hey, I need stuff. I want a new coffee cup. I think I'd like a new car. Maybe a new phone, a fancier one, a newer one that's bigger and nicer. I want those things. Why shouldn't I have those things? I should be able to have those things. I work really hard. I should be able to have those things, right? That's the human perspective. And it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's just really, really partial. It's really limited in its scope and applicability. The next step from there would be, let's zoom this out to the planetary level. It'd be like, all right, we're a part of the planet, Earth. Everything that we're made of comes from Earth. It's all Earth. So we're Earth. We're Earth acting, right? So we're like pieces of this planet acting like humans, just like every other creature acts like itself, acting like humans and trying to get our individual needs met. And in doing so, we're actually destroying our planet, the environment. We're destroying our environment, you know? And so in some way we think that serves us. You know, I get to have a new cell phone, therefore let's dig a new mine somewhere in Asia and exploit a bunch of people to dig out those rare minerals so they can be manufactured at some factory in, you know, whatever, Eastern China, so they can ship it over here and I can buy it, right? That would be sweet. I would have a new phone. It would be so fancy. People would be like, look at your phone. It's amazing. Joke. Yeah, we don't see it that way. We don't see it as, oh, wait a minute. We're a part of this big planet, and we are acting as if we aren't. We're acting as if we exist independently of that planet. We're acting like we just kind of landed here, and we're running around gathering things we need. We don't see ourselves as growing out of the planet. We don't see ourselves as part of the planet story. We see the planet as here for us. We don't see us as a chapter in the story of the planet, which we are. They're both true. They're both true. One is at a higher scale. The planetary scale is a larger scale. It has a broader perspective. It includes all the life forms on the planet, not just humans, not just my family or my country or me. It involves everything, including the non-living elements, the rocks and the atmosphere and the things that we don't generally consider alive. Those are part of the planet too. So in that sense, they are part of we're in that general category. Okay, so long kind of rant down that direction. Maybe it's not a rant, it's something else. But the point is, we don't easily shift between scales. We have a hard time breaking out of I'm Jericho driving to work with my coffee cup, and I don't want to be late, but I am because I'm sitting in this gnarly traffic. So we have a hard time getting out of that and getting into anything different. You know, anything smaller, anything larger. Sometimes it's easier to think larger just because somehow it induces a sense of awe and wonder because we are seeing that we're part of something bigger, and somehow that inspires us. We have less feeling around the bacteria in our gut, for example. We're like, oh, this is little bacteria floating around in there and eating complex carbohydrates, whatever. It's harder for us to connect with that. That just seems really abstract, but it's easier for us to think of the planet. And when I say easier, it's funny, because we don't actually, most of us, think about that at all. Because it's not immediately obvious to us in our daily life. That's the issue, really, is that, if we just pay attention to our senses, we don't see the planet. If I'm just like, hey, where's the planet? Well, I don't see a planet. I see trees, I see rocks, I see hills, I see cars, I see people, animals, weather. I don't see a planet, right? The planet is inferred by all of those observations. I have to say, okay, well, here's a rock and here's a puppy. I look at the rock and I look at the puppy, and they seem like really different things. There's a rock, you can kick it, nothing happens. There's a puppy, you better not kick it or I'm gonna kick you. Descartes, I'm looking at you. But yeah, like there's a puppy. It's a totally different thing than a rock, right? It behaves differently, it barks, it's cute. The rock is, maybe cute, but probably not. Probably just looks like a rock and doesn't really do anything from our perspective. Now, if that's the human perspective, and that seems really obvious, that's what we call common sense. But if we go to a bigger level, let's take it back to the planetary level and look at that puppy and that rock. If you just take it to the planetary level and you say, okay, both the puppy and the rock are part of the planet. They're both part of the planet. So in that sense, they're not really fundamentally different. They're not the same, but they are inclusive in the totality of the planet. They are, they're not separate. Let's put it that way. You can't have the rock and the puppy separate because they both come from the planet. They're both products of the planet. They're both, children of the same parent, if you want to anthropomorphize it. But they are not fundamentally different, even though our senses tell us they are totally different. Like, you don't look at a puppy and be like, that puppy looks just like a rock, right? That doesn't make sense. That's kind of cuckoo. That's Don Quixote stuff, chasing windmills as giants and whatnot. You're hallucinating, right? But actually, it's ultimately true at a very deep level. Not that windmills are giants, but that, the rock and the puppy are not actually fundamentally different. They're products of the same process, the same ongoing event. And this can happen again and again and again and again at different scales. We could do that as a very simple way of like two people in this country. We were hearing it all the time with all our political turmoil. It's like, hey, we're all Americans here. That's us trying to appeal to a higher scale. But, it's pretty obvious that that appeal to a higher scale is in no way shaping our behavior in a meaningful way in this country right now. We can't get there. We can't get to this other scale. That's just the country even. We're not even talking about the planet or the species. Like, hey, look, we're all humans. Let's not destroy our, world. We can't get there. We don't see the world. We don't see the other humans. If we see the country, we're lucky. And usually if we see the country, we only see some sub-segment of the population as real citizens, and then the rest are like, they're not real citizens. They're just whatever. So there's that sense of exclusion that takes place. We like to draw borders around things. It makes us feel very comfortable. So, anyways, this is a pretty long video. I said it was going to be short, and I was wrong. I need to end this. I'm through the traffic, and I'm about to get to work. So, we don't think at scale very well. We get really trapped in our world of the senses, the thing that's really obvious to us, like there's a car, there's a rock, there's a puppy. We get trapped in that, and we lose sense of these higher levels of how these things cohere, how they're related. And if we can see things at a higher or broader level or a different level, we can see things look differently. We can have different perspectives and find different solutions. So, it's a worthy activity to say study astronomy just for the fact that it gets you to think very differently about what's going on. The Earth is one planet. It's not like the whole world. There's a difference in talking about the Earth and the world. When you look at astronomy, you have to say, well, Earth is a planet. There's a lot of planets. And then you have to stop and say, think about that for a minute. There's a lot of planets, and this is just one planet? Just one? Right? So, shifts things a little bit. So, anyway, food for thought. Religion can do this as well. That's often what theologians are doing when they're thinking about God. Changes scale, helps people think about things differently. There's many ways to approach this thing, but it's something that we really do need to do right now. We need to learn how to think at a bigger scale because our capabilities have allowed us to interact at a large scale, but we aren't able to think that way, and so we're kind of blundering around, wreaking havoc, and not realizing what's going on because we just can't even think that way. So that's our task for today. It's our task in our contemporary world, anyway. Let's think at different scales. Let's expand things and see things differently, shall we? All right. On that note, I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.